Want to take all day. Okay, this is a discussion of philosophy. And we're going to start at one end and go back and link through in a bunch of stuff. And we have to be somewhat careful about some of the things we say because Big Brother doesn't like us communicating these things. This is a discussion for men only. It's a male philosophy kind of thing because it relates to testosterone. So I had cancer. I've had colon cancer, this latest one. Before that, I had breast cancer, and before that, I had skin cancer. And so cancer taught me a lot about the human body and biology. Shit I never wanted to learn. I'm not bent that way, right? My mother was a nurse, but I could have never have been a doctor. It just doesn't work that way. I did it out of necessity. Anyway, so I learned some stuff. And it actually comes down to a philosophical understanding of what it is to be male versus not male in the ambient reality, in our shared reality. And that philosophy can aid you in staying healthy, or if you choose the wrong philosophy, it can make you unhealthy. And this unhealthiness that we are seeing around us and everyone, much of it is not our fault. Much of it is external. These strange energies from space are adding to everything. And but there are things we can do about it. A conscious approach, and understanding that the symptoms that we're dealing with are compounded by how we think about them. And if we think about them in another way, then we can make sense of it all and approach things in an entirely different manner and have things work out satisfactorily. So one of the complaints that we see frequently and now being referenced online and so on is the low testosterone. And it's contributing factors to all different kinds of stuff, right? But I'm not going to go into the social aspects of it or even the economic aspects of it, right? If you've got low testosterone, you don't have much in the way of output. You're not going to get much in the way of reflection of value back to you from universe. So testosterone actually ends up helping you make a better earn a better income and make more of this particular life. And thus, by the way, that's why women prefer men with higher levels of testosterone, because there is all different kinds of aspects of that greater key, that big dick energy kind of thing that comes out of it. And but I'm talking about the testosterone itself now, and relating it back to the cancer. Testosterone does not give you cancer. Having testosterone does not give you toxic masculinity. It makes your life ever so much better. I know because I've had testosterone and then I didn't, and then I've had it back again. And that's what this actually this philosophy is about, is getting it back again. How to boost your testosterone naturally, should you choose to not go the route of injections of testosterone, synthetic or otherwise. There is a trade-off in that sense, in that your body does become addicted to the supplementation of the actual injections, and there's tendency for it to not produce as much on its own. So I'm going to offer you an alternative, a whole bunch of them actually, and you can try them and see if they work for you. They've worked for me, and I'll explain real quickly where I was at. So I was okay. So there's a difference between intelligence and being smart. All right, so I'm intelligent, but frequently I'm not very smart at all, because smart is where you apply your intelligence to your own circumstances and make your life better because of your intelligence. And so you see a lot of mathematicians that are not smart. They're just extremely intelligent, and they bumble along and don't really make much of their lives, even though they're very intelligent, all right? But occasionally humans become smart. And in my 40s, I was smart, and I had all of my numbers run. I had blood work done up the yin-yang just to see where I was at. because of this book I was reading at the time. And I wanted to have this metric to be able to look back on when I'm in my 50s and 60s and now approaching my 70s to see what things had changed. This came in handy when the full-blown colon cancer thing appeared. At the time in my 40s when I had that done, I was about fluctuating between 168 and 172 pounds. And when we had run the testosterone at that point, I was fluctuating between 950 and 1100 in our T level. At that weight. And that was age 40. So everything was good. Everything was cooking right along. Then we come to the point where I'm 65 and I die of colon cancer, and then I have to struggle through the recovery. Now, in the last couple of weeks prior to my death of colon cancer, now bear in mind the death part didn't take, which is a real bitch too. Fighting back for several years, as anybody who's gone through it will tell you, it is its own set of challenges in some ways that exceed dying of cancer, right? That dying of cancer is no joke. The pain is absolutely fucking incredible. And it will drive you, mad because it's corroding your body from the inside. It affects your brain, your thinking, everything. We won't go into that anymore. But at this stage here, when I was getting into this, I died of the cancer. In those last couple of weeks before dying of cancer, I dropped from wherever I had been, because the cancer had been affecting my mind as we go to age 65. I hadn't been paying attention to those kind of things. And I was trying to get us settled. Bear in mind, I knew I was dying. I didn't know what I was dying of, but I knew I was dying. And I maintained that thought through those last 2 years to get all of my affairs wrapped up such that it would be as reasonably tidy as I possibly could make it before I exited, which is whole nother story. I mean, it's terrible. Anyway, though, so here I had dropped down to, I was probably hovering around, let's just say 160 or something. And then in those last few weeks of the rampaging cancer, the weight just fell off of me. And it was muscle mass too. That was the really shocking part. Such that at the time that I died, at the point of my death here, I was 130, I want to say 8 pounds with clothes. And those were heavy clothes because I was always constantly cold. So I dropped 30 pounds, and that was muscle mass, because here at 168 pounds, even at 172, I was not particularly fat. I didn't have a big fat layer or anything, right? Because I've been doing Aikido 5 days a week and, martial arts and ride my bike and all that sort of thing. So anyway, down here, when I finally came, I don't know what the testosterone level was at that point, but I do know the testosterone level. So that was the July. The testosterone level 6 weeks later was down in the upper 200s. It's like 282, and then so that was like 6 weeks after the surgery and all that. I'd barely gained back about 2 or 3 pounds, 282, and it fluctuated up to about say 320. And so that's pretty low, cut way the hell down from there. Now here's the thing. The reason that this occurs, and it's kind of sneaky, is that cancer converts your hormonal production system over to stress hormones. So you take in, basically you take in fats. This is really simplified. Doctors can have a conniption fit if they want. The details are not necessary to the conclusions, so we'll just go right through it real quick. Basically you take in fats, some very small number of oils, and it converts it into cholesterol. And that cholesterol is used as a power source for a number of different operations in your body, many of which combine with aspects of vitamin D, and then you produce a reservoir, so to speak, from which your hormonal mass is really made. And this reservoir can be controlled. So one way to think about it is that your body's producing hormones all the time. You're taking them in. Vitamin D hits the sun, hits you, and vitamin D is a hormone as well. And you have a control mechanism for this. This control mechanism can be flipped into one or two major modes. One mode is healthy mode, and if you're male, it produces more testosterone than estrogen. If you're female, it's the reverse, right? Then there's the unhealthy mode, and that is stress hormones, and it produces cortisol. And from cortisol, there's all these tons of other stress hormone breakdown components that are basically themselves stress hormones that do other things in your body. And so the same material can be used to make good hormones or bad hormones. Very, very simplistic. The bad hormones, the stress hormones, are actually good for you if you are running for your life. You're not going to be worrying about, nature says, procreation. So you don't need that testosterone at the moment. Let's get some cortisol to get you really stressed out and get everything pumping, even if it's going to drive your adrenals sky high. And that's basically the trade-off. It's sort of this evolutionary trade-off. And anyway, so in cancer, you flop into the cortisol, and you just stay there. All you ever do is produce stress hormones. It affects everything in your body. It throws your whole metabolism out of whack. Thus, you end up with really low testosterone levels as a result of going through a major cancer death. Well, yeah, I mean, it's own it. I own it. I should have low testosterone after dying from cancer. Anyway, so I discovered this. This is not good, because that's what's making me drag 6 weeks after. That's what's encouraging infection. That's what's making me not recover and still produce cancer cells and still activate those cancer cells, because I have to exist on things like sugar just to be able to get through the day. And bear in mind, I won't go into it anyway, but the sugar aspect of that keyed me into what was going on. I had my testosterone hormone. Now bear in mind, the oncologist it wasn't his idea to test for testosterone. He never tested for any of the vitamins levels, any of that kind of stuff. It freaked him out when my vitamin D got over, I think when it got over 22 or something, because I was wasted here. I could get into the sun all day, but I didn't have enough cholesterol in my system that was not converting into cortisol to be able to do any good in trying to make vitamin D. So it's just this vicious cycle. Anyway, so I end up with the low testosterone. And basically, what do I do about it? So I research, I think about it. There's two alternatives, all right? Because I'm something of a natural kind of a guy, after 30 years of having my cancer not be diagnosed and being turned off by doctor land because they kept fucking me over with misdiagnosis and trashing me and so on, my natural inclination was to look for something herbal to approach it, right? Something natural. Anyway, but I find out that you can get shots, and I could have just boosted my testosterone right up. But the downside is you become addicted to it, and your body does. It's not like you have cravings, but that because the testosterone would wane, but your body wouldn't kick in when it waned. That's the theory anyway. I don't know this personally. So anyway, though, so it didn't strike me as the best of the ways to go, but it was always the one that I could use in reserve if I couldn't accomplish what I wanted to do the other way, all right? And so, but I was able to accomplish what I wanted to do the other way. So I went from, so over the course of a number of months, let's say 7 months, all right? So over the course of 7 months, I went from 320 to 598, which is a pretty good improvement. And I started to feel pretty good about that point, right? And I did it with my pure sleep thing, but that's not why. I mean, this does not, in and of itself, this does not account for the production of new testosterone in my body. What I did was a whole regimen, a whole slew of things, right? And I'm going to get into some of those things that we can get into right now, and I'll tell you different ways to get at it. The first things that you can do is to follow the approach of ahimsa, right? Himsa is a Sanskrit word for harm. In Sanskrit, when you put the A in front of it, it means do not. Okay, so do not harm. So do yourself no harm. So don't overdo this shit because you really can hurt yourself. But the very first thing you can do is you can go to red light. Sun your balls. Look it up. And this is, look up all of this shit that I'm going to talk about because I don't have the time today to get into details as to about why it'll actually work for you. But so you can go and look it up and you can validate it, right? Prove me wrong, like Crowder says, you know. Change my mind, prove me wrong. So sun your balls. This one is basically not very harmful at all. It's difficult to do it such that you're going to really injure yourself. When you get into the chemicals and stuff, you can. And so that's one of the aspects of it. But anyway, cut out sugar. You can go keto, you can go primal, but cut out carbs. Because they really do reduce testosterone. And so we're going to look at some of the other things that also reduce testosterone, okay? And so other reducers. Other reducers include things like soy, flax. Flax seed is even worse than chewing the damn flax plant. Most of the nut milks. I haven't found one that does not have the testosterone lowering, estrogen pumping effects. Just have not. So you need to really think about all the plants you eat. Bear in mind something here, right? In all of human history, the women were the herbalists because there were tons and tons and tons and tons of herbs that regulate women's hormonal body, but very few herbs that do that for men, and we've never really gotten into it. I'm going to get into some of those now because I had to explore it as a result of all of this, but the vast majority of plants are not edible. Virtually all animals are edible. The vast majority of plants produce some level of lectin or phytoestrogen that affects males. We don't find that in any animals. So you can exist on animal products and you won't get all of these phytoestrogens, which are plant estrogens, but you won't even get, you're not even going to ingest that much in the way of estrogen, animal estrogens that would harm you. Anyway, so the thing is, so you have to reduce those things that are going to reduce your testosterone. Another thing to stop, right? So you need to cut out, you need to stop all this stuff. Another thing to stop is beer. Stop beer drinking. Beer drinking, and which also, you're going to have to stop wheat, barley, and oats. Oats have their own issue. They're not as bad as these two, though. Okay, wheat and barley produce this effect that they call wheat belly, and that is the buildup of the bad fats. But these are bad fat deposits in your body around your abdomen, and then you get from the beer you get this gas effect because your stomach has to expand. This expansion contraction of the stomach, along with the wheat effect on your gut, is not good for your body. Ultimately, will cause heart issues, things like a reduced ability to breathe and all these other sort of things. However, in the immediacy of the thing we're talking about, beer, wheat, barley, and to a smaller extent, oats, all reduce testosterone. Beer, wheat, and barley boost estrogen. Oats, not so much. So oat milk is not a nut milk. So a grain milk is, this one particular grain milk is probably not as bad as all of the others in terms of its effect on you, but I wouldn't live on it. You know, you could if you found some and you were in desperate need, you could probably consume it and not feel too bad of an effect from it. But none of this stuff is good for you. And so, you know, you got to cut out all the sugar. You got to get rid of, you should only have 1 teaspoon of sugar circulating in your system at any given time. By the way, cancer is a metabolic disease and it runs off of the sugar you ingest. If you ingest a lot of sugar, you're going to fuel cancer. If you have any cancer cells pop up, they're popping up into a nutrient-rich environment, and there you go. Trust me on that one, I'm an expert. Anyway, so if you get enough sun, you can boost your testosterone naturally. You can cut out these things right here, which will reduce your testosterone. Now, to boost the testosterone, there are some substances that you can take that are not the testosterone injections. And so you can take cordyceps mushrooms. There's an argument going on as to whether or not cordyceps mushrooms taken for the testosterone, whether you could take the products that are made off of the mycelium alone, right? And I have not investigated it enough to be able to determine if you have to have the full fruiting body for the cordyceps. But that's my general rule, is that you need the full fruiting body because there's a different mixture of what are generally classed as phenolics, the triterpenes, the terpenols, and all of these other chemicals. There's a different mixture in the full fruiting body of a mushroom than there is in the mycelium. So it may be that you can get away for the testosterone purposes of taking the cordyceps capsules that are made from the mycelium, and they're cheaper, and they're probably as effective. But I can't say that from personal experience because I've always taken the full fruiting body. Now, the thing to note about the mushrooms, as opposed to things like Tongkat Ali, A-L-I, it's an A. Never know it, but that was an A. Okay, so mushrooms, as opposed to the herbal approach, is that the mushrooms can be sustained for months and months and months and months and months, right? They don't have a tendency to build up if you take them at the level that your body is able to support. Don't trust necessarily the manufacturer in that sense, and don't exceed what they're saying in there, but try lower doses if you're finding that it seems unpleasant, because that's your body saying that, you know, I don't need quite this much. But you can keep those going 18, 20 months without breaks sometimes. I always suggest you take a break just to allow the body to refresh itself, and break might be 2 days, 10 days, 20 days, depends on how long you've been taking it, to refresh itself and get its perception of that molecule back again so that it can be more effective. And this is certainly the true of all allopathic medicines. You can't take them indefinitely. You have to have these breaks because your body gets so used to it that you know, it basically has no effect. Now, the herbal stuff like Tongkat Ali, which is probably one of the more superior ones, it's been used in by humans for testosterone boosting. Now, this is not okay, how do I want to phrase this? This is not an aphrodisiac, okay? This is not taken for immediacy purposes. It's not that kind of a herb. This is a long-term health herb for building up your testosterone. Martial artists might take it to build up their muscle mass. It's not a steroid, but because it does produce more testosterone in the body, that in itself produces more muscle mass. And so they use it as an adjunct or a supplement that way. You might find endurance athletes taking small amounts of it for a long time because it has tendency to build up the body for that kind of long go action. It really is an interesting herbal in that regard, but you have to be very careful of it because you can't take it for a long time at a regular high dose. The endurance athletes will do this varying thing where they drop down, take very little, and then come back up to whatever their daily dose is for a while, and so on. But it does build up in you, and so at that point you have to just stop. You have to, once it builds up, you just go, I can't stand that stuff anymore. And it might be a month, might be 2 or 3 months, and might be never before your body accepts it. But it may also have done its job by that time, right? In the sense that if you were using it to boost testosterone, it's basically using the material in your body and kickstarting the whole process of the production of testosterone by the mechanisms that are within the herb. The other thing about Tongkat Ali to be aware of is that if you take this, you're new to it, you've never taken it before, and you get vast quantities of pain on even a small dose, you know, not vast quantities, but I mean you get pain on even a small dose in your stomach or your intestines or whatever, be advised Tongkat Ali is extremely powerful anti-cancer. especially in gut cancers. And so it may be an indication that you have such if you take that and you get that kind of a reaction. Now, if you just take a bunch of it and you take too much and you're burning a hole in your gut, that's not the same thing. I'm saying, you take one capsule and then, 5 hours later, it's just like really torturing you, but it goes away the next day. When you don't take the tongkat ali the next day, you may want to investigate and see if you've got some kind of a cancer situation going. Because it is so powerful that way, it will actually cause those kind of immediacy effects on a cancer that's active. All right, so cordyceps and tongkat ali. So basically you've got the mushroom approach and you've got the herbs. There are a number of other herbs, many of them shade down towards aphrodisiacs, and I don't favor those because they're intended to provide a big boost, but a lot of them also have a tendency to damage the delicate mechanisms in the testes for a short period or longer. So you just have to be careful with it, right? You have to understand what you're looking at and how it's going to affect your body and investigate it, because you can get yourself into trouble with this shit. Now there's a safer way for all of this than the herbs here. And so I don't recommend people take this approach, because you got to be smart about balancing it. You got to be smart about listening to your body and that kind of thing, right? And these days we have a lot of issues being smart. We can be intelligent, but applying it to ourselves is not necessarily going to happen. So there's another approach, which is peptides. Now there's many classes of peptides, many classes. And there's some of them that if you take them, you can get your body really fucked up to the point you're going to have a doctor visit every 3 weeks for the rest of your life as a result of that, to keep your metabolism well organized, okay? So with peptides, these are can be very serious and dangerous substances. Now there's classes of the peptides. There's synthetic, there's also natural. The natural are less likely to be damaging to you, but nonetheless can still be damaging, especially if you have any kind of underlying heart conditions. You don't want to take, for instance, peptides that will boost the adrenals, because you're going to maybe get into AFib or other kind of heart problems. So that kind of thing. So the peptides that we're talking about here today, there's classes of peptides that are basically for testicular use, for the testes, and others for prostate, both of which play a part, big parts in testosterone production. Okay, so for instance, with the testes, you might use testosterone. These are, okay, so the natural peptides, the best on the planet, are produced in Russia. They have extremely high quality control on those, and they're really good about an international sales, and so you'll find them in English, and you'll find them on Amazon and vitastream.com and a bunch of other places. And they're reasonably expensive, but you're paying for the purity, paying for the quality. And it's not like they're food, okay? Now these are basically food grade substances, so in and of themselves they're unlikely to do you harm, but always read cautions on them. But for boosting the hormones, testosterone is going to be the most rapid. It will have hormonal effects on you. If you've got low testosterone, be advised that if you start getting rage episodes, you're getting too much of that damn peptide, right? So you need to monitor your moods on this stuff as well. If you're getting too emotional and too weepy and stuff, you're getting too much of that peptide. Back off a bit. And everybody's different, and so you're going to have to vary all of this stuff. For the prostate, you're going to want to take, that's for older guys. So testosterone might be for young guys that have been consuming too many sugars, too many carbs, too many wheat and beer and flaxseed oil and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so their testosterone's knocked way down. So they might want to take testosterone. Knock off all of this other stuff, because the two of them cannot be taken together. So you'd have to totally alter your diet before you get into taking the peptides, otherwise you're going to cause your mind to go batshit crazy with hormonal swings. You'll be even worse than you'll be like like a bunch of pregnant women rolled up into one angry male ball. So, you know, that's not a good image. The hormones are just going to be flying off the wall. All right, but for the prostate, for older guys trying to boost their testosterone, you want to go to Libodin, okay? Libodon, I think. Libodon, something like that. Look it up. They're on Amazon. So testosterone and Libodon. There's a bunch of variants, right? So there's subtle variants in the peptide. So you can shade off of one and get more towards adrenals, shade off the other way and get more towards the small glands in the head that help produce, and in the neck that produce all of the hormones and regulate them. That's really what we're doing, is regulation. These do not produce hormones. They aid your body in the regulation of its own production. But the prostate ones are good for older guys for swollen prostate issues and so on, which is also can be triggered by too much consumption of all of this stuff here. And so basically you end up going to some form of a variant of a carnivore diet, a primal diet, with very little seed oils, very little phytoestrogens being introduced into your diet, and you can significantly raise your testosterone. I'm much higher than this at the moment. That was 7 months after I started the process, and I'm getting back towards the 900. So this is good. And it just takes a while. Not very hard, not very difficult, yet it just takes a while and you have to monitor yourself. So anyway, that's our philosophy for men, that if you want to adjust your testosterone and going out and participate in stuff, always remember ahimsa, don't do any harm, and then cut out the bad stuff and include some of the good stuff. And the red light really does work. I mean, that's like noticeable. You need to keep it up. You need to do the red light probably 5 days out of the week, but you can achieve, you know, I don't know, maybe if we're looking at numbers, maybe a 10 or 15% rise in testosterone production within a week. And maintain it. And it's not stressful. So there's the other aspect of that. If you get into a situation where you're taking some kind of stuff, let me think of something, ashwagandha, or tongkat even. If you take these things, suma, some of these things that are touted as producing energy and so on, be advised they're driving your adrenals. That's not good for long-term testosterone production and health of the body. It's also not good for cancers. If you've got a cancer, adrenals will also, the adrenal hormones will also tend to promote its growth. So it's a question of balance and figuring out where you want to go and what you're going to do with it. Now, getting back to the Pure Sleep was just a recovery aid. It has stuff in it to make me sleep because your body rebuilds itself during sleep. There's nothing in there that directly affected the production of the testosterone per se, but there are things in there that produce a harmonious environment for quality hormonal regulation in the body via these other means. Anyway, guys, take care, because those damn energies from space are going to get all of us. So when you sun your balls, by the way, the goal is to do it between 10 and 3 in the afternoon, 10 a.m. and 3 in the afternoon. You want to do it for about 10 minutes or so. The idea is to get red light on them. We're surrounded by blue light. All of these lights we're under is all blue light. And we never expose our skin to the red light. We need that red light exposure on our genitals. It really kicks up testosterone production, but it also regulates other hormones, and it's a health providing aid. But you don't want to burn yourself. You don't want to get arrested for exposure. So, you know, go out and dangle, you know, somewhere where you can't be seen, and have a good fucking excuse if you are. You know, have a thing saying, "I am sunning my balls for health," and hand it out. But anyway, it does work because you get the red light between 10 and 2. You're going to get this UVB, which is the area of light, the spectrum that we extract the red light from with our skin. Anyway, okay, so all right, sun your balls.